Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our application tip webinar. I'm going to wait for some of the numbers to rise as you guys are coming in, but hopefully you can hear me. If you can't, please let us know in the chat box. Lovely. That's great. I can see the numbers rising. I'm just going to wait a little bit more, a few more seconds, and then we will start. Okay, that's great. So hello everyone, and thank you for joining. My name is Sarah Lou, and this is my colleague Elena, and we are senior advisors on the recruitment and admissions team for the MBA. There may be some of you in the audience today who are looking to apply in the next coming stages, our stage 4 and stage 5, or maybe you're more at the beginning stages of considering if an MBA is right for you. Either way, we want to make this a useful webinar where you can put your strong application forward. Now, I will say last week we had an information session and there were some technical difficulties. So because of that, the webinar didn't happen. So I'm aware that some of you are on today joining for the information session. So our plan is this. We're going to start off with the applications tips, answer a few questions, and then if you want to leave, you can do so. And then we will continue with the information session, and then we will answer a few questions around the program. So if you want to say, that's absolutely fine. I'm sure you'll find it all beneficial. So feel confident and feel comfortable to put for your questions in our Q&A box. If you can make your questions as general as possible, that would be really helpful for everyone else as well. However, if you have a specific situation, you're more than welcome to email our inbox and we'll be happy to answer that question there. Right, lovely. So we're going to be talking about the application requirements. And I'm going to go into a little bit of detail on each of these. But before I do, I want to say this. Each of these requirements are equally as important, and there is no such thing as a perfect candidate. You may be asking yourself, is my work experience enough? Is my GMAT strong enough? And naturally, there will be areas in your application that feel stronger than other areas. And I think my advice would be to put your best foot forward. So let's say that your GMAT maybe doesn't quite fit the competitive score, but it was your best attempt. I would say apply with that score. As long as you put your best foot forward and you feel like you've done your best in the application, that is the most important thing. Okay, so your undergraduate degree. The main thing is you must have a bachelor's degree. If you have a master's or a PhD, you can include this within your application, but you must upload a bachelor's degree. We will also view the ACC qualification equivalent to a degree, as long as you've passed the fundamental levels. Now, we welcome a 2.1 and a first, but we also accept lower degree results. If that's your case, and you have a lower degree, we want you to maybe just have a strong career progression within your CV, or maybe around a competitive score, but we can have that conversation with you. Professional work experience. Now, our professional work experience ranges from about 2 years to approximately around 12 to 13 years, with the average being around 5 to 6 years. Now, regardless of the number of your experience, it's critical that you demonstrate a level of growth, progression, a willingness to take on responsibility, whether through leading a project, managing a team, or driving impactful initiative. That's what we're looking for. So don't get too caught up in how many years you've done. This is what we are looking for within those years. Now, your GMAT or your GRE, which is quite a popular topic, we don't have a preference on what tests you take. My advice would be to research what platform best suits your learning skills. Now, there's a range that we have there's a range of admitted students that have a range from 500 GMAT score to around 780. So, and then anything in between. So if you're maybe someone who has a lower GMAT score, and you maybe feel a little bit unsure if you want to apply with that score, I would say we'd be happy to have that conversation with you. You can inbox us, email us, and send your CV, send where you're located in the country, in where you are located, and your GRE or your GMAT score, and we'd be more than happy to have that conversation with you. But I will say this, we do look at it in regional areas. So there's some countries that don't do standardized tests, and we're very much aware of this, and we take that into consideration. So yeah, so just so that you know that these are the ranges that we do have within the MBA, from 500 to 780, but we're more than happy to have that conversation with you. Now, references. So references do need to be submitted by the deadline. My advice would be to, when you start your application, put in your referee details as soon as possible, so your referee is able to start their references as soon as possible. They may be busy, they may not have put time away to do it. So by adding in your referees in your application, doing that straight away will give them plenty of time. If they don't submit their references before the deadline, unfortunately, your application will be put back to the next stage. So who can be a referee? Someone who can speak about you as a person, your character, your work ethic, how you handle pressure, problem solving, teamwork, how you contribute to the company, and how the MBA will benefit you. You want that sort of person to write your references. So if that isn't your line manager, if that isn't the CEO of the company, then you actually don't need to have them as a reference. Use someone that can speak highly of you. Now, if you come from a family business or you have your own business, a startup, for example, you can use a client, a board member, or a supplier or a stakeholder. So those are other avenues that you can take as a reference. Now, your online assessment. Now, these are the competency-based question that lets you demonstrate certain leadership skills and qualities we look for, such as integrity, vision, self-awareness, and collaboration. Now, the Kira, I will say this, is that you would also need, for you to get your Kira link and to start your Kira online assessment, you have the link takes about 24 hours to come to you. So in that case, I wouldn't leave the Kira assessment to the last minute. Otherwise, you may get it too late and submit your Kira assessment after the deadline. And if that is the case, it will be pushed back to the next stages. So just be aware of that. So to trigger the Kira link, you need to put in your references and you need to upload your CV, and then the Kira link will come to you. And you want to do this because you can also practice on the online assessment, and you can practice as many times as you like. And so first of all, you want to be able to practice, give yourself as much time to practice. You will have 3 questions, they're pre-recorded questions. You have 25 seconds to think of an answer, and then about 90 seconds to share your answer. And then let's go into the next one, which is a supporting statement. Now, some people use a supporting statement to explain why their GMAT or GRE is a little bit lower, or why their GPA might be a little bit lower. But that's a rare situation, but you can do that if you feel as though you need to do that. We have essays which stand out, which are written, which are very creative. For example, I read an essay the other day, and it was about an awkward moment they had at dinner, which then they were able to turn around and talk about the reasons why they were doing an MBA. It was very creative in what they did. And their reasoning, a lot of people use the essay for their reasoning for the MBA, a family value that maybe stirred them into this direction, a situation that shaped them to take this course or to take this program. Whatever it is, we want to hear it. We want it to be something that maybe we couldn't get from your CV or your LinkedIn. My advice would be authentic and be personal. Now, your English requirements. Now, we accept the TOEFL and the IELTS. You can read the minimum scores which are on our frequently asked questions. We do also accept English language waivers. Now, if it's an academic waiver, it has to be a completed degree within 2 years of the start date of the course. If you did a degree 5 years ago and it was in English, unfortunately, we can't accept that as an application waiver. However, you may be entitled to a professional waiver. Now, if you speak English within your current role, you'll be entitled to a professional waiver. And what we would need is these 4 components: reading, writing, listening, and speaking. And we just need you to explain. I would personally have these in each as a heading, a subheading for each of these, and explain with maybe 4 lines of how you use each component on an everyday basis. As simple as, I write emails, I do presentations, I talk to clients, etc., etc., etc. And that would be okay for a professional waiver. And I think that is it. So a lot of people may ask, what is your ideal candidate? And I wouldn't say there's necessarily this ideal candidate. I think the beauty of the MBA is that it's extremely diverse in thinking, diverse in sector, diverse where people come from. But we were looking for authenticity. Someone who has integrity, someone who is self-aware, someone who has confidence, but also has this balance of willing to grow, someone who is ready to contribute to the classroom, to contribute to the program, and to be a team player. And if you think that's you, then I would definitely say apply to the MBA. Now, my colleague is back up and we are going to answer a few questions. So feel free to put in your questions. We're going to start asking a few questions around the application sessions for, well, depending on how many questions we have. And then we're going to go into the information session. And if you want to stay on for that, you can do. Okay, let's have a peek.
Thanks everyone for sending all those questions. Keep sending those please in the Q&A box and we will try our best to answer all of them. We do have a few slides with an overview of the program and the information session, and I'm pretty sure some more questions will come up based on those, but like I said, please keep sending those over and we will try our very best to answer all of them.
That's great. So coming from, we've already answered quite a few, so that's great. So coming from Canada, my GPA is 4.0 scale. What would be equivalent to for a 2-1 or honours B? So on a 4-point scale, that would be a first. That would be equivalent to a first. Anything from 3.5 would be equivalent to a first. So that would be more than accepted.
There is a question on scholarships. Quite a few of them actually, so I will just select one of them. This one in particular says, what percentage of students typically get Said scholarships for the MBA? Thank you for this question. We will start by saying the process is very competitive, and the later you apply for the program, the more competitive it can be, because naturally by that point of your application, you know, we have awarded maybe the majority of our funding if you apply quite later in the year, and in the same kind of way, the majority of the spaces in the MBA class have already been filled. But that being said, our cohort is around 330 students on average, and typically 1/3 of our cohort gets funding every year. So this is a really good number, I would say. Obviously, it's important to keep in mind, like I said, the process is competitive and you have to keep a few things in mind. So that's when you apply and for which scholarship you might be aiming for. There are a few different ones. There's one type of scholarships that you don't have to do anything to be considered for. You just need to apply for the MBA. And then there's a second type of scholarships that you have to actively apply for, either with an essay or with an application form. Those are slightly different in the sense that they have an interview process most of the time, and they have very strict deadlines. And so try to look at the second type of scholarships, I would say, just in case you might need to prepare a second application and you're aiming to also apply for the MBA very soon. Try to plan for the program as if you want to receive any funding. This is very important because you might not get anything, and you get to a particular point where you've been admitted and you find out that you haven't been awarded any funding, and so you haven't made perhaps any other arrangements to pay for the MBA. So we always encourage everyone to plan for the program as if they want to receive any funding, and if they do receive funding, to look at it as some sort of bonus for you. But yeah, 1/3 of our cohort gets funding, so that's really good.
That's perfect. We got some questions just around the Kira. So yeah, that's correct. In terms of Kira, they're asking, do we just need to submit the names of the references and upload the CV? We don't need to complete the entire application, and that's correct. You don't have to complete the entire application to get the Kira link. As long as you've uploaded your references and your CV, that will trigger the Kira link, and you should get it within 24 hours. So definitely, if you know that you're applying in stage 4 or stage 5, especially obviously stage 4, you can really start that now, and you can have some practice time with Kira, which I always think is really good, just to get used to talking to the camera and seeing what questions you might get as well. And yes, and there's another question in terms of the preparation time. So what happens after you've done all your practice sessions, you're feeling really confident, you press go, it will come up with a question. You have 25 seconds, so roughly about 25 seconds to think about an answer for that question. And then you have 90 seconds to answer that question. And remember their competency, lost my voice then. Remember their competency questions. So they're around your their behavioral questions. So yeah.
Perfect. There are a couple of questions when it comes to TOEFL and GMAT. What are the chances of admission without the GMAT score? So there are no chances, unfortunately. So submission of a GMAT or a GRE test is a mandatory component of our application that cannot be waived regardless of academic or professional circumstances. So you do need to submit a GMAT or GRE as part of your application to be considered. And there's a second question on the TOEFL. What is the minimum required score? So for TOEFL, we ask for 110. Obviously, we do recommend, same as with GMAT or GRE, look into TOEFL, look into IELTS, see which testing style works for you, and then submit your score. But for TOEFL, we request 110 as a minimum score.
Perfect. Thank you. We've got another question here around the GPA being a lower score. How can you make up for that? Well, I would say just remember there's other elements of your application that are probably going to be a lot stronger. We also take into consideration that if the minimum work experience is around 5 to 6 years, a lot of people did their bachelor degree years ago. And so you just may be a different person then, you may have learned other skills. After that, some people have gone on to do a bachelor's, etc. So 2.2 isn't a bad result. We have people that are admitted into the program with a 2.2, even a third. I would just have it, you can't change that. So I would just have a look at other areas within your application which you can strengthen. And that might be your GMAT score, your GRE score. It might be looking at your post-plan MBA, your essay, etc. But I wouldn't worry about that. I wouldn't feel like you have to make up for it apart from within your application.
Perfect. There is a question here that says, what percentage of the program is in person/remote? So the program is fully in person for the whole year. So you'll have to be in Oxford physically to attend the program. There is a follow-up question that says, asking us some large businesses are moving towards return to office with little prior notice. Have you seen students manage this without them losing out on either? So if I understand correctly, you are looking to find out whether students can also work at the same time and juggling between program and work. This is certainly not possible. So we advise you against working during the program. The program is super intensive, so you'll be in class most of the day, every day, 4 days a week, generally. However, if you're doing extracurricular activities or joining any clubs or societies, you might not have time for much else. And also very important, and maybe more important than that, is obviously your student visa will not allow you to work full time. And so you'll have to quit your job, quit your role temporarily to be able to study for the MBA. And then once you are finished with an MBA, then obviously you can return to work, but the program is fully in person for the whole year.
Lovely, thank you. We have some questions just around CVs and the format of the CV. Obviously on the application, we advise you to go with the Oxford format. And I honestly, if you can do that, I would advise for you to try and fit it into one page as much as possible. There's someone here that says they have around 10 years work experience. And so you want to go with the more recent work experience that you have, and anything that you feel that the committee would need to know. In regards to your CV, we do have a webinar coming up. I believe it's in the next 2 weeks or 3. With our associate director and someone for careers who will be talking about how best to put your CV together. So please do log on to our events page and it will be up there. If it's not up there now, it will be up there in the next couple of days, where that will be really vital information to help you with your application.
Perfect. I wanted to answer a couple of questions. They're completely different, but I'll just answer both of them. This first one says, are there any application waivers available for students? So we do waive the application fee for residents of low-income countries as per the World Bank list. So we have the list available on the website as well in our FAQ page. If you are a resident of one of those countries, then we will waive the application fee for you. Otherwise, unfortunately, we do not do that. So unless you are a resident of those countries, you will have to pay the application fee. The second question from Courtney is the English language proficiency exam required for all students, even those born and raised in English-speaking countries. So if you are a national of an majority English-speaking country, then you will not need to submit an English test because obviously you will have a nationality, and so you won't need to prove your English language proficiency.
That's lovely. Just to clarify around Kira a little bit more. Sorry, I'm just rereading it. Sorry, around the references. So yes, your references need to be, your referee needs to upload their references before by the deadline. If it's after the deadline, it will go over to the next stage. And so you don't have to submit your application before they get the link. Whilst you're doing your application, they can have the link, upload their references, and you can continue on with your application. So if you know that you're applying this stage, you can, for example, you can do that now, and that's not an issue, and then come back to your application at a later date. There's a question around formal attire, like what should you wear for your online assessment? I personally think it's a good idea to wear formal, business casual. Don't turn up in a hoodie or a jacket. That's just my advice. Look at it as an interview.
Perfect. Yeah. There is a question here. I'm going to answer a couple questions again. There's one from John. Besides scholarships, given they are highly competitive, what are the typical ways successful applicants fund their MBA if they currently cannot? So what we see in our students and how the majority of them manage to fund their MBA, I would say, is a mix of a few things. So if you have some savings then that you can use towards funding the program, family savings as well. Some of them do come with some family savings. Company sponsorship is one of them as well. Some of our students are fully or partially sponsored, and then a big part of the tuition fee is majority of the time covered by loans. So we have a dedicated page on the website with external funding opportunities, and you'll see a breakdown of kind of the ways in which our students are paying for the MBA. And you'll be able to see a breakdown of all of those, and hopefully some of them might work in your case as well. But these are a few of the ways in which they pay for the MBA generally. There was a question around an English test. I took the Oxford ELLT. Can I use that to show English proficiency? So we recommend you sit either an IELTS or a TOEFL test. These are the tests that we see very, very often. So the one that you mentioned, unfortunately, is not something that we can accept, but we recommend you pick either IELTS or TOEFL.
There's just a few more questions around the GPA. Is there a cutoff point? No, there's not, honestly. Like I said, we accept first 2-1s, we welcome that, but we understand that people do have lower, and we have admitted students who have a lower degree. And so if you are in that category, you are more than still welcome to apply. You have a bachelor's degree, so you're more than welcome to apply. If you studied anything else, like a master's, for example, you can upload that as well. If you are really concerned, you are more than welcome to email the inbox. I would just also add your CV with that, and we can talk about that a little bit more, but we do accept all GPAs.
Perfect. A question here from Mariana. Is it harder to get in if you apply in the later rounds? Well, this is a bit tricky because like we said earlier, obviously the process is competitive anyway. So regardless if you apply in stage 1 or in stage 4 or 5, it will still be competitive. You are applying to Oxford. However, because you are applying in a later round, by that point, obviously, the majority of the spaces in the class might have already been filled, and the same applies when it comes to funding. So it can be harder in the sense that, like I said, because the spaces in the class have already been filled, maybe the majority, it might be a bit more competitive for you to be admitted if you apply in a later round, but certainly not impossible. So at the end of the day, we do have 5 stages, and we see applicants applying in all of them. And in terms of our January deadline, we still expect that deadline to be our biggest one of the whole year, because obviously that deadline is tied up with some of the other deadlines that we have, with the scholarship deadlines and with the 1+1 program that I will actually talk about in a second. But it can be harder, but obviously not impossible. If you submit a competitive application, if you really work on the elements that you submit in your application, then I don't see why you can't be admitted. Just a quick question in terms of the work experience. Is working experience even before graduating from university considered? So generally, we look at your work experience after you graduate from your undergraduate degree, and it needs to be full-time work experience of at least 2 years. So we tend to look at your work experience after you graduate.
Yeah, and just on work experience, there's some people just want a bit more clarification. So it's a minimum of 2 years. And we, for example, there could be people that range from about 2 years to about 12 years. And so if you're in that category, then you are more than welcome to apply. We have a person who is talking about the stages and the scholarships, and the process in which they may not be ready. So can they defer if they apply now and they defer later for a scholarship? We unfortunately don't do deferrals. And so that it's when you're ready to come onto the course, that's the best time to apply. So if you know, I believe you're applying this stage, but you want to defer, that wouldn't be possible. We wouldn't be able to defer. So if you know that you can only come for class 2026, and that's the best time to apply.
Perfect. We are halfway through, and I was just wondering if we should go to the next section of the webinar, and we will hopefully try to answer some more questions as we go, and at the end of the session if we still have some time. So if that's okay, I'll jump to some of the other slides we have prepared. It's more related to the information session we were hoping to host last week, but unfortunately, because of those technical issues, we couldn't. And so with the next slide, I'm hoping to answer some more questions. And like I said, if we still have time at the end, we will gladly take some more. I did see a few kind of specific questions, specific to a particular applicant's case. We do ask you if possible to try to keep them general. And then, if you have specific questions about your profile, maybe try to email us on the Oxford MBA inbox just to see whether we can give you some more tailored advice. So why the Oxford MBA? I'll just speak about the program a little bit, just an overview of the program and how the year looks like. So this is a one-year full-time program that you have to attend in person in Oxford. So you'll have to move to Oxford to attend the MBA. I will have an overview of the program as well in a bit when it comes to how the year is structured. So that's really interesting. Why you should apply or why you should consider the program. If you are someone who thrives in that diverse environment, that diverse network, we have a very diverse class, and we have actually prepared a class profile for you just so you understand the diversity we have. And this doesn't necessarily stem from your nationalities or the country you are coming from, but also your backgrounds in terms of your profession and your academics as well. And what we're trying to do here is to build a diversity of thought. So you're joining a cohort that has obviously different opinions and different input that they can bring to class. So that's something that we are trying to do with the diversity that we are building. Accelerated career advancement. So this obviously, the whole engagement with the career services team can be as big or as small, depending on your own intentions and your own priorities. The reason I'm saying that is because you are in a position to engage with the career services from even before you start the program. With, I believe, 10 or 11 weeks before you start the program, you are given access to a platform and to the career services team who can support you during the year, of course, up until the very end, when you will benefit from the same amount of support from them when it comes to achieving your career goals. So accelerated is because obviously you are part of a one-year program, and because some of the careers that you're looking to transition into after the MBA have slightly different recruitment cycles and recruitment processes. You will start the program in September, which might also be when you should start applying for particular jobs, which obviously can be very challenging for you. You've just started the program, so you might be very, very busy. And so this is why we start that engagement early on, obviously to prepare you and to help you for those job applications, networking events, recruitment fairs that we have, a few months before you actually need to attend those. The lower tuition and living expenses, this is obviously tied with the fact that we offer a one-year program, and so the tuition fee will be lower than some of the other programs that are available, maybe a year and a half, 2 years, where the tuition fee is going to be a bit more expensive, and living expenses as well. Obviously, you will have to, pay for those for the year and not for 2 years. So this is something that we try to, encourage everyone to keep in mind. This is a one-year program, and so if you have to pay just for that year. The integration with Oxford universities, this is quite unique, of course, and maybe one or two other institutions in the UK have a similar kind of system, and I will touch on the collegiate system in a bit. But obviously, as part of the business school and you being an MBA student, you'll be a student of the University of Oxford, which is a very prestigious institution, and it's a very nice mix of old and new. The business school is very modern, a modern building, modern facilities. In relation to the 800 years old University of Oxford. And so that's a really interesting mix, and obviously you can benefit from anything that the university has to offer when it comes to events, any speaker events or any other activities, clubs and societies that you can join because you are a student of the university at the end of the day. So this is quite unique. The focus on impact and innovation, we are hoping to do this with the curriculum that we provide for you, which I will show you in a second. What we mean by impact is obviously creating positive impact in whichever industry and whichever profession you are in. We're hoping to build responsible leaders, good responsible leaders with the cohort that we have. And so with each and every one of you in your respective careers will hopefully have a positive impact that you will bring into the world. Our next slide is the class profile. This is something that we are super proud of. And this is from the class that just graduated in September. So our average, because I saw a couple of questions as well when it comes to the work experience. We have an average of 6 years of work experience, but obviously it really depends when you think the right timing is for you to apply for an MBA. So we see applicants with just 2 years of work experience, and then at the other end, maybe you already have 9, 10, 12 years of work experience. We do accept all of them, of course. What we want to see is more why you think the program makes sense for you at this particular moment in your career, and also what you can bring to the class and to the collective learning environment. So if you've only got 2 years of work experience, we might ask you a few questions when it comes to that input and that contribution you have. But obviously the 6 years is just an average number that we have in the class. People are coming from 23 different sectors, and I do recommend for a more detailed analysis on that to check our latest employment report, where you will see a very detailed, like I said, analysis on the industries and sectors where our applicants are coming from, where they are going into, like which industries and sectors they're transitioning after the MBA. Which companies are recruiting from our class. That's a very, very good resource, which we always recommend you review. 51% female students. So for the first time, we have achieved gender parity and even managed to hit 51%. This is something that we are super proud of. And this is only possible because of the initiatives we have running. And we are hoping to, to maintain that or to get as close as we can to that same percentage. We do value female representation in the class. 97% international students. So this is related to what I was saying earlier. If you thrive in an diverse environment, culturally, professionally, then perhaps this might be the right program for you. We have over 60 nationalities represented in the class, a class of around 334 students. This is roughly the same every year. The 1+1 MBA, I did see a few questions when it comes to that program as well. I will just mention a few things here. This is a really unique opportunity for you to complete 2 different programs with the University of Oxford, one being the MBA with the business school, and then the second one being a master's of your choice that you have to pick from a partnering programs list that we have available on the website. So essentially how this works, you'll need to complete 2 different applications, one for the master's that you are interested in, and then the second one for the MBA. You have to submit them by the January deadline to be considered. And we have quite a few interesting programs that our applicants are going for. They're very diverse as well. So it really depends what your career goals are, what your interests are, and you'll be able to see the programs we have. Because you are doing 2 years, of course, you have additional time for career transition. So in your first year, you'll start with the master's of your choice. Let's say the MPP, which is a very popular one, the master's in public policy. So you'll do that in your first year. You will graduate, and then in the second year, you will do your MBA. This is how it normally works. And obviously, it's a unique 2 years that you will do in Oxford. It's more cost effective than a 2-year MBA, of course. Every master's from the partnering programs list will have their own tuition fees. And obviously, it's important to keep that in mind. You'll have to pay 2 different tuition fees for both programs. And for you to be considered the 1+1, you will have to be accepted into both programs. So you can study both of them as well. Something that's really unique as well, and I would say a super exciting opportunity that we encourage you to have a look at on our website, is the Pershing Square Scholarship. This is a full scholarship that covers both tuition fees for both programs and your living expenses as well on top of that. So it's a really exciting scholarship. Obviously, it's a competitive scholarship, but we do recommend you look into it. you have to apply for the scholarship. So you have to complete an application form separate from your two master's applications that you prepare. But it's a really, really unique opportunity to study the 2 degrees through that scholarship. This is just an overview of the program, which you can see in more detail on our website. So you'll see the list of electives we have available and the breakdown of all the core modules we offer and the description next to every one of them, just so you understand what kind of knowledge we are teaching you in the program. For the first time as well, we have a pre-program that started this year. What the pre-program is, this is an online self-paced program that we make available to you. And this is, I would say, based on student feedback that we've had over the years and just some other trends and things that we've seen happening. This is a program that's maybe more suitable for those people that are not necessarily coming from a traditional MBA background, so maybe a finance or a business background, a tech background, and so they might be lacking in certain subjects that we have to offer in the program. And so with the pre-program, hopefully by the time you start the MBA, you will have had those fundamentals that you might need to be able to be at the same level, hopefully, with the other members of the cohort that have that, let's say, traditional MBA background. So that started for the first time this year. And so if you will apply, you will be able to benefit from that if you start in the following years. The year is broken down into, I would say, 4 terms, and the program is highly customizable, as you can see, because you can get to pick your own subjects and you can build your own program. So starting from the first term, every term has a different name, which is a tradition of the university. So the first term is Michaelmas, and you will have 6 core modules that you will do. This is really building on, like I said, the fundamentals of business finance and accounting and operations management. And you will study those alongside all your MBA peers in the class. So you'll start with the core modules, and then from Hillary term, which is your second term, from January, you will start building your own MBA. You will start customizing your learning experience because you only do 2 core modules and then you pick 4 electives. And this is a really interesting system in terms of how you pick those electives. We have a bidding system. You are given a number of points and you have to bid to basically get admitted, let's say, into a particular elective. So this is when you start personalizing your learning experience. And if you have a particular career goal or particular interest, then you can select electives that really support you in that kind of aspect. With the third term, this is an even higher degree of customization because you will not have any core modules, and this is made of electives only. So again, this is where you build your own program because we don't have a concentration like other programs have, but we give you an opportunity to build the program that you want to do. So this is Trinity term. In the long vacation, where you really wrap up the program and finish off the MBA, you have 3 options how to do so. First one would be just to carry on doing some more electives too. If there's anything specific that you haven't managed to study during the year, you can pick 2 more electives, or you can go for an internship. This is an internship for credit. That's around 6 to 7 weeks, and it will be during the summer holiday. Or you can go for a consulting project, which is a real life consulting project that you will be working with a client, and it's essentially a consulting task. You'll be able to pick one from those 3 options. This is entirely your choice, of course, in terms of how you really want to finish off the MBA. We have a couple of international electives that we offer. You will be able to also see some more information when it comes to that on the website. We have one in Africa and one in London. 2 kind of different ones. One is on fintech, one is on business. So you'll be able to see some more information on that. Obviously, on top of your program and your core modules and your electives, we have plenty of co-curricular activities available. The most popular ones we've listed there, the Finance Lab and the Impact Lab. We have plenty more clubs and societies that you can join. We have a talent development program as well. there won't be enough time to do all of these things. So it's important to prioritize what's relevant for you in your case. But this is just an overview of the program. The electives you'll be able to see, these are just a few, I would say, maybe more popular than others, but you will be able to see a full list on our website. You'll see slight changes in the electives list every year, and that's again based on current trends and things that are happening in society nowadays, and based on students' feedback, what they think was relevant for them in their case when they did the MBA. And so we make slight adjustments every year, but it will pretty much look the same. The colleges, this is what I was saying earlier, integration with the Oxford University. So as a student of the university, you will have to belong to a college. We have many of them. It's a really long discussion here to go into the specifics of the college, but what the college is essentially where you really spend, I would say, your social time. Your academic time will be spent in the business school most of the time. And so those formal dinners that you might have seen, or formal events and activities that you might have seen are happening in the college. So all the colleges are amazing. You will be able to apply for one, depending where you also apply for the MBA. You will have one choice that you will need to put down once you have confirmed your place on the program. And then you will be able to see whether that college will accept your application or not. But like I said, you will have to belong to one. Otherwise, you can't be a student, and they are all amazing. They are slightly different in terms of, I would say, maybe where they're located, or just small things that they have to offer, but they're really, really similar in facilities and everything that they have. So wherever you end up, just know it will be amazing, and there is not much difference between the colleges, but this is essentially where you spend your social life. For undergraduate students, this might have, I would say, it might be a bit more important because for them, that's where teaching happens. Whereas for you, for postgraduate students, your teaching happens in the business school. So you won't even spend that much time in the college anyway. The stage deadlines, finally. There were a few questions when it comes to our deadlines. We've already had 3 deadlines this year, and we have 2 remaining. So we are approaching the one in January. And so for those who are hoping to apply for that, you still have some time to prepare your application or to finalize your application. And then we have a final deadline on the 3rd of March. So that's a stage 5 deadline. If you are aiming for 2026 start, usually we start recruiting from a year before. So sometime in August or September of 2025, we will start recruiting for class of 2026. And so the deadlines will be available at a later stage. And now we can go back to questions. I'm pretty sure there might be quite a few of them, which we will try to answer in the remaining 10 minutes that we have.
Lovely. I will start off while you are looking at a few. So we have one around the IELTS. So it's one skill basically if the IELTS isn't maybe to your best ability, can you retake it and then be given a conditional offer? Now, conditional offers they don't really happen. As a team, we don't really give conditional offers. However, we could, but that does depend on your application. If we felt like it was only the IELTS, which could be considered and that we would look at, maybe you missed it by a few points, then that could be a possibility. But usually we don't give conditional offers. So I would look at maybe holding back, making sure that you have a good score first before applying if you need to apply with an IELTS. There was another question from Sunny in regards to, do we do exchange programs? No, we don't. The only thing that we do is, as Elena said, internships around the summertime. We have international internships, one in South Africa around business in Africa, and then a fintech one within London. But no, we don't do exchange programs. I have another one here in regards to the CV format. There is a level of flexibility around the CV format, but like I said, we do have a webinar coming up, and I think that honestly will be really useful. It's very popular that people do have a lot of questions around the CV format. When you are if you are admitted into a program, that is something that you would have to do, that careers will work with you to do. However, there are some people that have one page, but it's not exactly the same. It might be in bigger, smaller for text, for example. But if you can stick to it as close as possible, that would be great.
Perfect. I was hoping to answer a couple questions around work experience and references. So the first one is, with 3 years of work experience, can an individual apply for the MBA? Well, this is very general, and because we haven't seen any other elements of your application, just by looking at your question and saying that you have 3 years of full-time work experience, then you are eligible, but only in that aspect. So it's important to look at all the other application requirements to determine whether you would be eligible. Having at least 2 years of work experience won't automatically make you eligible for the program. You have to consider all the other elements that we require. There's a question here from Sayed. Sorry if I'm not pronouncing your name correctly. Can your work colleagues that you work closely with but are not your line managers be your references? So this is something that we do accept. So I believe we touched a little bit on this earlier. It's important who you pick as your referee. So these people need to be quite close with you. So they need to have worked with you. Maybe they can even speak about who you are as an individual. And so if you pick, for example, the director of your company, and maybe they might not even know who you are because it's a large company, it won't look good on your application. So we do recommend you pick someone that has worked closely with you, even if this is not your line manager. However, if it is your line manager, it might help because they might have a few things to say about you, when it comes to you being managed, your teamwork abilities, and a few more things. But we don't necessarily ask for your referee to be your line manager, your higher authority. It can be anyone really. It's just that it has to be someone that you have worked very, very closely with, so they can add that value to your application.
Lovely. We have a question here asking around the deadlines. If they was to process their application a little bit earlier than the deadline, would it get processed? Unfortunately, it wouldn't. The deadline is the 6th of December, so we usually start processing around that time. You wouldn't get, for example, an early decision, if I think that's kind of what you're asking, because you've applied earlier, would you get an early decision? Unfortunately not. That wouldn't be the case for that. Also have a question around, do you accept a lower than the minimum score for the IELTS and the GRE? So the IELTS, no. So the TOEFL, no. There's a minimum score. If it's lower than the minimum score, unfortunately, it would be a reject, or we would ask for you to go back, redo the score, and we will process your application in the next stage. Your GRE, there's not necessarily a minimum score for the GRE. We want you to put your best foot forward. If you have any concerns, if you feel like it's really low and you're not too sure, we are happy to have that honest conversation with you. And so I would email the inbox with your CV and your GRE or GMAT score, and we'd be more than happy to have that conversation with you.
Perfect. There was a question around the 1+1 program. Is it possible to apply for partnering master's program during the MBA and pursue 2 degrees for 2 years in total? So yeah, of course, you can apply for the MBA. Obviously, if you are admitted onto the MBA, you can then decide to apply for a master's degree to pursue after the MBA if you want, but you will not be considered a 1+1 student. So this is important to mention. You will just be doing 2 different degrees with a wider university, one of them being an MBA, the other one being a master's. But like I said, for you to be considered a 1+1, you will have to apply for both at the same time by the January deadline and to be admitted into both, doing the MSc first and then the MBA in the second year.
Lovely. There was a question around the components of each application requirement and the weight of that. We look at it as a holistic approach. So generally, there will just be more stronger areas in your application, and that's absolutely normal. Not every area, and we see it often, is what we would say strong, and that's okay. So it will just balance out itself. You just put your best foot forward. And so if you're worried about maybe your test score, you might have a lower GMAT score than maybe the competitive score, but then your essay may be really strong or your work experience may be really strong. So it usually balances out. I have another question. I think you may have just touched on this, but in regards to references and business owners, if you're a business owner, we look for maybe you can reach out to clients. You can reach out to stakeholders, board members, suppliers. So you also have those options as well. And very popular question, is there an age limit for the program? No, there isn't an age limit for the program. We're more so looking at around what you've done, more so than an age limit. So, but the program itself ranges from, I would say, around 24 to maybe 41. So roughly around those ages. But I wouldn't focus too much on that.
Right. We have time, I believe, for just a few more questions. I would like to ask for a recommendation from someone I have worked with closely but has recently retired. Would that be okay? They do not have a professional email anymore. This is fine. So we do accept that. But try to tell them to include just a short line in the beginning of their letter explaining why they're not using a professional email address, just so we are aware. And you can also send us an email if you'd like, closer to the time of your application, to just advise us that you have used a personal email for one of your recommenders, and this is the reason why you're doing so. So as long as you provide us with the information beforehand and also your referee, then we do accept that.
And references, another question, references is around an A4 page and then maybe a little bit more. I've never seen anything more than 2 pages. So I will say that. Also about a waiting list. So it depends. It honestly depends about in regards to our application. So last year we had a waiting list. And if people didn't accept our offer, we put that out to the waiting list. This year we may have a waiting list, but that's not always the case. So it is possible, but that's why we always say try and apply as soon as possible, because stage 5 is a bit touch and go. It's a lot more competitive in terms of spaces. We may only have 40 spaces to give when we've got over 100 applications. And so if you want to apply in stage 5, that's absolutely fine, but just know that it might be a little bit more competitive for you.
Okay. One question here, is international exposure mandatory for selection to the full-time MBA program? Not necessarily, no. So this is not a mandatory component. However, if you do have international exposure, this will certainly help you, because at the end of the day, you are joining a very diverse cohort. And so we are hoping for you to have that international exposure, because otherwise, you will not thrive in that kind of environment that we offer. But like I said, this is not a mandatory requirement. If you do not have it, then this is absolutely fine. We will look at other elements in your application to make a decision if you are going to be shortlisted for an interview or not.
Great. I'm just going to do one more question. I don't know if you want to do one more, Lena.
Sure.
But just in regards to the internship. So and careers and how that works. So there is summer internships. If you choose not to do an internship, there will be summer electives that you can do. There's a lot of people that prefer to do summer electives. So you can also do that. Now, in terms of when it comes to applying for jobs, careers they have this almost open door policy where they have coffee chats with you. There's no limit to that, which is really good. So on the first stage is really as soon as you come, they do start having that conversation with you. Like Elena said, it's the pre-program, careers are connecting with you. And so, yeah, that's not necessarily something to worry about. You'll have fairs to attend, interview, guidance, those are stuff. I think it happens like on a Friday when it comes to like development stages of that whole process. So that's something that we can provide, but you don't have to do an internship. You can do summer electives.
Perfect. I'll just take one final question. What if I don't know what I want to do next? Is that okay to apply? You know that you need an MBA, but you don't know the exact next step. So we do recommend to apply for the program when you have a specific post-MBA plan in mind. Obviously, the application is a very big investment from you in terms of your time, your efforts, and your money at the end of the day. So we just want you to make sure that you know the reason why you are applying, you know your intentions after the MBA. And so you made an informed decision when you decided to go for the MBA. And so if you're not sure yet what you're looking to do next, we recommend you perhaps wait a bit longer before you submit an application, because the admissions committee will want to see exactly that. So your post-MBA plan will be a big part of your application. So we do recommend you wait until you figure out your next steps in your career and then submit an application with us.
Lovely. I think that's all we have time for. Thank you everyone for your questions. We really do appreciate it. If you have any concerns or questions around the program or around the next stages that are coming up, feel free to inbox us, email us. We are more than happy to help. But yeah, we're wishing you all the best. And yeah, hopefully you will be joining us for the Oxford MBA soon. Take care for now.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.